Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back. Coming back with another build video for the Elder Scrolls Online, talking about the Necromancer class. If you haven't had the opportunity, feel free to check out battleofthebuild.com. This is a site that I work on. As you see here, I'm working on the build. I have already theory crafted this build, and I know a lot of people are looking for a diverse group of builds for Battlegrounds. Of course, you can always check out battleofthebuild.com, which is your #1 source for all of ESO recommended Battlegrounds. I play the vast majority of these builds myself, or I theory craft them, and I know typically every build that I come up with in theory craft, as I understand the game, I've been playing the Elder Scrolls Online for the better part of 5 years, and typically have been doing Battlegrounds strictly since the inception of Battlegrounds into the game. So I've come up with a wide variety of builds for the Necromancer, whether you're looking for a hybrid build, Magicka build, or a medium armor stamina build. Of course, the melee Magicka Nightblade is there, along for people who are looking for a little bit of utility and offering a tank build for the Nightblade class. And of course, my Warden Beastmaster and of course my utility tank for the Steel Guardian is also up. And of course, I have my Paladin build as well as my dual wield Magicka Templar and light armor. And of course, I also have my DK builds that are up there. I will be posting also the Sork builds that I also run that I've tested. But for this particular build, we are looking at the Goliath Ultimate, which many of you are familiar with. The stamina morph is quite overpowered and broken. Hopefully, the developers will fix that ASAP. But again, I don't put out cheesy one-trick pony builds, but so let's go right into it. So I am working on it here. You will find a collection of builds here. Of course, I'll always put my traits. You'll be able to see the buffed no CP stats right here, along with the traits that I'm using, the names and the description of the abilities that I'm using, and of course the theory of the build will typically be here. The concept will be here, and of course the gear, and of course why I selected the gear, and of course where to get the gear that I'm using for this particular build. With that said, let's go right into the Necromancer build called Bloodlust. With this particular build, I wanted to create a Necromancer build that revolves more around the Ravenous Goliath ult. This is the Magicka version, or the non-bash version, that does AoE damage, and of course you get to heal for that particular damage. The current race that I run is the Nord. I find the Nord to be an excellent choice for the Necromancer, especially because the Nord generates ultimate while it's in combat, and of course the Necromancer ultimates are quite expensive, so every little bit of extra ult that we can squeeze out goes a long way. And of course the Nord is fairly tanky. As you can see here, it has a little bit of extra spell resistance and physical resistance, as well as of course HP and stamina. With that said, like I said, this is a no CP build, so we are in Cyrodiil, all points into Magicka, and for my Mundus I have chosen the Thief, and we'll go right into that right now. Item sets that I chose, for me, I felt that Green Pact worked the best. Reinforced Heavy, always on the chest to maximize the mitigation, and of course on all the large pieces I always go Tri-Stat to maximize my resources, and of course on the small pieces we're going with health. Second set that I'm running is the Desert Rose. Desert Rose is an excellent set when it comes to Magicka sustain, but to make the most of it, you need to utilize a very tanky setup, which is why I went with this build. So we're going with Desert Rose here. We are running 2 Magicka sustain and of course 1 stamina sustain, so that we can keep our stamina up when we're on our front bar. This build does not require a lot of spell damage, as most of the abilities that we're running either have high tooltips or are used for utility, and of course relying on our ultimate for the better part of the damage that we're doing. On the front bar, we are running a lightning staff, decisive, very important, decisive, 40% chance to increase the amount of ult that you generate by 1, which includes the ult that you generate from your passive from the Stalwart, right? Every time you get hit, every 10 seconds you generate 5, and of course while running a decisive you will have the chance to generate an extra ult every time that procs, as well as the normal ult chain that you get, right? You get 3 every second, and so you have a 40% chance to generate an extra ultimate while you're in combat. With that said, the Necromancer also has an ability called Necrotic Potency, which generates 6 ultimate every time you absorb a corpse. Corpses can be generated in Battlegrounds either when you kill a pet, when you kill a player, or when another Necromancer, when one of his summon dies, or of course if we were running a summon, that summon too would drop a corpse. The only ability that we are running that can drop a corpse is the Beckoning Armor, the Beckoning Armor skill, which is our armor buff, and it says there it creates a corpse when the effect completes. It does create a corpse as well at the 10-second mark or below. If you recast the ability, it will drop a corpse on the ground. Keep that in mind. But primarily as we're getting kills, as our team is getting kills, and of course as other Necromancers are dropping corpses on the ground, we can in essence pull ultimate from them. And of course each time we utilize this, it also has a chance to proc an additional 1 ultimate. And of course the Necromancer also has a passive called, let's see if we can find it, I forget where it is. There it is, corpse consumption. So every time you consume a corpse, you generate an additional 10 ultimate. This effect can occur once every 16 seconds, right? So there's a lot of ult gen going on this ability to basically maximize the uptime on Ravenous Goliath, right? The first ability that we're running is the Avid Boneyard. The reason I chose this is because it has a decent tooltip, and of course if it consumes a corpse, it deals an additional 20% damage. But the main reason for the choice is you or an ally standing in it can of course activate the synergy, and the synergy does basically 7,300. That'll be cut in half, but it also heals you for that damage. And of course it does roughly 15k over 10 seconds, so it's about 7,500 over the course of 10 seconds. I see a lot of people utilizing the Sith or the Psi ability, however you say it, I forget. And a lot of people in essence are using it wrong. The ability works based off of your health. This ability is designed to work with the Ravenous Goliath ultimate or someone stacking a little bit more HP, but primarily it's utilized not for its damage but for its healing. And as you can see there, it has a nice beefy tooltip of 11,000 on the first enemy hit and an additional almost 3,700 for each additional enemy hit. This is a lot of HP sustain. We are running quite a bit of HP. As you can see, this is in Goliath form, in no CP. These are our stats that are running. 28k Magicka, almost 17k stam. These are our recoveries with a tripod. Again, this is not a build designed for spell damage. We do not need a lot of spell damage, but we are running spell critical, and that's because of a Necromancer passive, both in the near death and as well as in the death kneel, which basically scales our damage. Once enemies become lower than 25%, we have a chance to do a little bit more critical damage. And of course we are running the Boneyard. That's going to give us an extra 10% chance to do critical damage, and that's why I went with a little bit more spell critical, which is why we went with the Thief Mundus for both doing more damage, and of course as we're getting lower in our HP from Death Kneel, it says while you have a living death ability slotted, your critical strike chance with all healing abilities is increased by up to 20% in proportion to the severity of the target's wounds. So basically as we start to get low, we will start to critical heal with our abilities, both from our Absorb Magicka as well as Hungry Sith. Basically anything that heals us. Could be a pot, it could be if you're running an HP regen on one of your weapons. Anything that heals you, like for example Structured Entropy, would also be affected by that passive. So we want to have a little bit more critical so that we're maximizing the use of that passive. Like I said, we're running Necrotic Potency, and we're running this on our lightning staff bar, because we're able to block and mitigate more damage on the back bar as we're using a sword and shield. But on our front bar, we want to take advantage of the extra mitigation because we have less resistance on that bar. And of course, we're not really going to be blocking with a lightning staff, but the extra damage reduction is welcome. The other ability that we're running is Structured Entropy, and of course primarily for the maximum HP, as while slotted it gives us an additional 8%, and of course it does a little bit of healing. And of course Inner Light primarily used for the extra 10% to critical, as we are running 5 heavy with 1 medium, 1 light. This is a 5-1-1 build. So like I said, and it gives us a little bit of extra max magicka. It gives us 5% for the ability and an extra 2% while slotted, as well as an extra 2% to our magicka recovery. Like I said, we are running the Ravenous Goliath, and as you can see there, while we are in the Goliath form, we will deal 3,600 HP, basically pulling from our opponents. And of course we're going to heal for 3784 damage to nearby enemies, and of course we're going to heal for that amount. And of course our light and heavy attacks will also heal us, and of course this is affected by things like Death Kneel. It's also affected by near-death experience. So as our opponents are getting lower, we're going to start to deal critical damage again. That's why we're running a little bit more critical healing, critical chance, of course, as well as the healing from this ability. So if, for example, if we were to get to be surrounded and swarmed, the heal ticks from this ability as well will be affected by the spell critical, of course, in near-death experience. I chose for my back bar Race Against Time. We want to maximize our ability to stay mobile, as we're not running any sort of a gap closer, and Necromancer is typically slower. It's a slow class. It doesn't have access to a gap closer. We're not utilizing any other form of gap closer, so we want to maintain our movement speed. And of course the Minor Force will help, of course, because we're coupling that with the extra spell critical. So with the Minor Force, we're able to do a little bit more critical damage, an extra 10%, and of course it removes all snares, all immobilizations, and grants us immunity for 2 seconds. And of course in the back bar with the passive, we'll gain an extra small damage shield on the back bar. Not really all that important, but anything helps. Our back ability again is Ghostly Embrace. This snares for 5 seconds by 50%, as well as offering Minor Maim for 5 seconds, as well as immobilizing up to 3 enemies, right? It'll basically create 3 circles in a straight line, and each circle can immobilize 1 person for 4 seconds. So we're primarily utilizing this ability to keep people in our Avid Boneyard, to keep people within range of Hungry Sith, so that we can, of course, utilize it for the heal, as well as keeping people in range for the Ravenous Goliath damage. And again, this lasts 20 seconds, so we're trying to maximize that by both keeping people slowed and rooted, as well as reducing the amount of damage that we're taking from them. The next ability that we're utilizing is Absorb Magicka from the Sword and Shield line, and of course that is absorbing up to 18k while in Goliath form, and of course it heals us for 15% of our HP, as well as reducing the amount of damage that we take while blocking, and of course reducing the cost of block by an additional 8%. We're running Deep Thoughts for situational, if you can get some line of sight. It's a perfect ability for helping us increase our stamina regen, and of course max magicka, and of course offering us a little bit of major protection while we're casting it via the passive from the Sigil Order line. And our last ability that we're running is Beckoning Armor. This is kind of a little bit flexible because you can use either morph. I think this ability will work really well. Of course, the purpose of it is it pulls in range enemies. So basically anyone who's hitting you from anything more than like 3 meters or so is going to be pulled towards you. Now, of course, the purpose of this build is to do area damage basically centered around you via Goliath, Hungry Sith, and of course the Avid Boneyard. So this works exceptionally well as people are trying to get away, or you're being attacked, for example, by snipers or other magic builds like Sorks, or Magicka Nightblades running Destro or Templars, etc. Anybody basically hitting you from range is going to be pulled towards you and basically sucked into all of your damage abilities. You were going to root and slow them, and of course drop Avid Boneyard, synergize it, and then of course basically go into Hungry Sith spam while we are in need of regenerating HP, and of course taking a full advantage of our Ravenous Goliath ultimate for maximizing the damage. On the back bar, we are running Temporal Guard. It is kind of a flex. I figured the 8% reduction while we're on the back bar. Typically, we're only going to be going to our back bar either to get out of roots or to root somebody, or of course to absorb a spell from range, or maybe we need a little bit of regen. So while we're doing that, we'll have access to the major protection while channeling this ability, and of course because we have this ability slotted, it'll also offer us an additional 8% mitigation. So it's a lot of mitigation on the back bar. A lot of our front bar is dedicated towards doing damage. You can see here our resistance, spell resistance, physical resistance. We're running full impen outside of the chest, which is reinforced. Now this is a bit of a flex spot. I was thinking which set would work best. I was a little bar hungry in the abilities that I was looking to slot, and I really wanted a CC. I didn't want a single target CC, and I felt that using the totem wasn't exactly my best option. You have it here in the Bone Tyrant, but it has a little bit of a delay. It's about 2 seconds there to actually get the fear. So I figured, why not go with Celestrix, right? Gives us a little more stam so we can block, dodge roll, CC break. But the two pieces, when you deal damage, you have a 10% chance to create an earthquake under the enemy that erupts after 1.5 seconds, dealing 5400 physical damage to all enemies within 4 meters and stunning them for 3 seconds, and this can occur every 5.5 seconds. So I felt this worked best, right? We're going to be doing AoE damage, pulling people in who are at range, but the melee characters, we have no way to CC. We can soft CC with a root or a slow, but we don't have access to a hard CC for example, many of the melee builds that are going to be around us trying to take us down, and I felt Celestrix worked best. It offers you an AoE CC. It can occur every 5 seconds, and of course there's a 10% chance, and of course we're going to have multiple chances to proc that between the damage over time of Abbot Boneyard and of course of our ultimate, between things like Structured Entropy, or of course the AoE Hungry Sith that will do extra damage but primarily utilized for healing. This is basically the build, and of course, like I said, this is a Nord. We are running this for the Necromancer, and of course feel free to check out the Battle of the Build website.com. I'm going to be posting a little bit more information on the build. Feel free to check it out, and of course we're going to be posting some gameplay either this week or next week of this particular build. If you're looking for battleground builds, be sure to check out battleofthebuild.com, your #1 source for ESO battleground builds. I've also posted some PvP clips, or of course some PvP tips and tricks, and of course a Necromancer related build. There's of course the tips for people who are looking to play Magblade and how to deal with different classes, of course the how to build for PvP there, and then of course my opinion on the changes to the Molten Whip and why either for a solo or for serious group play, why I feel that it's particularly not that useful, and you're going to end up being a little hungry for HP as a Magic or Giant Knight. Feel free to comment in the video. Let me know if there's any questions you have. Of course, feel free to check me out on Twitch at Infamous with 2 S's NYC. I will be streaming later tonight. I typically stream fairly regular. You can check my my channel at the bottom. I typically post my schedule for the week, and feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. I appreciate it very much. Every subscriber helps to add to the channel, and feel free to check me out anytime. Thank you very much for listening. Take care and God bless. I'll see you on the battlefield.